Jake Murphy pushed his cleaning cart down the empty hallway of New Geneva Station. The lights were dim during night shift, casting long shadows on the metal walls. He had been working as a janitor here for 3 years now. It was quiet work, which he liked. No one bothered him, and he could think while he cleaned. The station was huge, floating in space around a planet called Kepler 442b. All kinds of alien species came here to talk business and make deals. During the day, the halls buzzed with strange creatures speaking different languages. But at night, it was just Jake and his mop bucket. He had not always been a janitor. Back on Earth, Jake had been an engineer who designed spaceships. But something bad happened with one of his projects. People died because of his mistake. After that, he could not face building things anymore. So he came out here far from Earth to do simple work and try to forget. Jake turned the corner and saw light coming from conference room 7. That was odd. All the meetings should have ended hours ago. He knocked on the door and waited, no answer. He pushed it open and looked inside. Sitting at the big table was a young dragon-like creature. Jake recognized him as one of the draconian diplomats. The creature had golden scales, large wings folded behind him, and sad yellow eyes. His name was Prince Zephyr, if Jake remembered right. "Oh, sorry," Jake said. "I thought the room was empty. I can come back later to clean." Prince Zephyr looked up, surprised. "A human? What are you doing here?" "I work here. I clean the station at night." Jake started to back out of the room. "Wait," the prince said. His voice sounded tired. "You can clean. I will not bother you." Jake wheeled his cart into the room and started wiping down the smaller tables. He could feel the prince watching him. The young draconian looked miserable. "Rough day?" Jake asked, trying to be friendly. Prince Zephyr snorted and a tiny puff of smoke came out of his nose. You could say that. Jake had heard about the draconians. They looked like the dragons from old Earth stories, but they could not breathe fire anymore. Other alien species made fun of them for it. They called them toothless dragons and fake fire breathers. The trade talks did not go well? Jake asked while he cleaned. "They never go well," Prince Zephyr said bitterly. "Today the hegemony ambassador called us house pets who lost their bite." The others laughed. "They all think we are weak because we cannot make fire." Jake stopped cleaning and looked at the young prince. "That must be hard." "You have no idea," Prince Zephyr said. "My people used to rule star systems with our fire. Now we can barely get a trade agreement for basic supplies. Everyone sees us as a joke." Jake went back to his cleaning, but he kept listening. He had always been good at that, listening to people's problems. It was one reason he liked the night shift. Sometimes the few people who stayed late needed someone to talk to. "My grandfather could breathe fire," Prince Zephyr continued. "Not much, but some. My father cannot do it at all. Neither can I. Each generation we get weaker." "Maybe it is not about being weak," Jake said. "Maybe you just forgot how to do it." Prince Zephyr laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Forgot, it is biology, human evolution. We evolved past it." Jake shrugged. "Maybe, or maybe it is like riding a bike." "What is a bike?" "Never mind. It is just an Earth saying." Jake finished wiping the table and started on the windows. As he worked, he began to whistle an old song his mother used to sing. It was a habit he had picked up during his lonely nights on the station. Prince Zephyr's head snapped up. "What is that sound?" Jake stopped whistling. "What sound?" "That music. You were making it with your mouth." "Oh, whistling?" "It is just something humans do." Jake went back to his tune. Prince Zephyr stood up and walked over to him. "How do you make that sound?" Jake paused his cleaning. "You just put your lips like this and blow air out." He demonstrated, making a clear whistle. The prince tried to copy him, but only air came out. "It does not work. It takes practice. Here, watch." Jake whistled again, slower this time. "You have to control your breathing and shape your lips just right." Prince Zephyr tried again. Still nothing. "This is impossible." "Nothing is impossible," Jake said. "Humans are not the strongest or the fastest. We do not have claws or thick skin or the ability to fly, but we figure things out. We practice until we get it right." The prince looked interested for the first time that night. "Show me again." Jake set down his cleaning supplies and faced the young draconian. "Okay, but it might take a while." "Are you sure you want to learn?" "I have nothing but time," Prince Zephyr said. "My diplomatic team thinks I'm sleeping. They would be angry if they knew I was talking to a janitor." "Well, this janitor knows how to whistle," Jake said with a smile. First, you need to learn how to control your breathing. He spent the next hour showing Prince Zephyr the basics. How to use his diaphragm, how to shape his mouth, how to control the airflow. The prince was a slow learner, but he did not give up. "Why are you helping me?" Prince Zephyr asked during a break. Jake thought about it. "I guess because you remind me of myself. Feeling like you lost something important and do not know how to get it back." "What did you lose?" "My confidence, I suppose." "My purpose." Jake picked up his mop again. "But maybe helping you learn something new will help me remember who I used to be." By the end of Jake's shift, Prince Zephyr could not whistle yet, but he was getting the breathing part right. Jake could see the determination in his golden eyes. "Will you teach me more tomorrow night?" the prince asked. Jake nodded. "If you want to learn, I will teach you." As Jake packed up his cart, he felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. Maybe he could not build spaceships anymore, but he could still help someone learn something new. Sometimes that was enough. Prince Zephyr watched him go, practicing his breathing exercises. Neither of them knew that this simple lesson would change everything for both their species. All they knew was that a friendship had begun in the quiet halls of a space station, between a lonely janitor and a sad young prince who wanted to learn how to whistle. The next night, Jake found Prince Zephyr waiting in the same conference room. The young Draconian looked excited, which was very different from the sad creature Jake had met the night before. "I practiced all day," Prince Zephyr said as soon as Jake entered. "Watch this." The prince put his lips together and blew. A weak, breathy sound came out, but it was not quite a whistle yet. "That is much better than yesterday," Jake said, setting up his cleaning supplies. "You are getting the lip shape right."
"Now we need to work on your breathing." Jake had spent his day thinking about whistling.
He realized he had been doing it automatically for years without really understanding how it worked. Teaching someone else made him think about each step. "The breathing is the most important part," Jake explained. "It is not just blowing air out. You have to control it, like turning a faucet on and off." He showed Prince Zephyr how to breathe from his diaphragm instead of his chest. "Put your hand here," Jake said, placing his hand on his stomach. "Feel how it moves when I breathe deeply." Prince Zephyr copied him, his scaled hand on his own chest. "It is different than how I normally breathe. Most people breathe shallow when they are nervous or upset," Jake said. "But for whistling, you need deep, controlled breaths." They practiced for an hour. Jake noticed that when Prince Zephyr focused on his breathing, small wisps of smoke came from his nostrils. At first, Jake thought it was normal for Draconians, but then he remembered that modern Draconians were not supposed to produce smoke at all. "Do you smell something burning?" Jake asked during one of their practice sessions. Prince Zephyr looked around nervously. "I do not smell anything." But Jake could definitely smell something. It was faint, like matches being struck. He looked more closely at the prince during the next breathing exercise. Sure enough, tiny puffs of smoke were coming from his nose. "Zephyr," Jake said carefully, "look in that mirror over there and try the breathing exercise again." Prince Zephyr walked to the reflective wall panel and took a deep breath the way Jake had taught him. His eyes went wide as he saw the small cloud of smoke that came out. "What is happening to me?" he asked, backing away from the mirror. Jake felt his heart racing. His engineering mind started working, putting pieces together. Maybe your people did not lose the ability to breathe fire. Maybe they just forgot how to breathe properly. "That is impossible," Prince Zephyr said, but his voice was uncertain. "Think about it," Jake said, getting excited. "What if fire breathing is not just biology? What if it needs the right technique? Like whistling?" Prince Zephyr sat down heavily. "My tutors always said we evolved past fire breathing, that it was a primitive ability we no longer needed." "What if your tutors were wrong?" Jake asked. "What if they just did not know the right way to do it?" They spent the rest of the night practicing breathing exercises. Each time Prince Zephyr did the deep breathing that Jake taught him, more smoke appeared. By the end of the shift, the smoke was getting thicker. "I need to research this," Jake said as he packed up his cart. "There must be information about old Draconian anatomy in the station database. You would do that for me?" Prince Zephyr asked. "Of course. This is bigger than just learning to whistle now." Jake paused at the door. "But we should keep this secret for now, until we understand what is happening." Prince Zephyr nodded. "My diplomatic team would not understand. They think I should focus only on trade negotiations." The next few nights followed the same pattern. Jake would research during his cleaning rounds, using the station's computers to look up everything he could find about Draconian biology. Prince Zephyr would practice his breathing exercises and tell Jake about his people's history. "My great-great-grandfather was the last of our kind to breathe real fire," Prince Zephyr said one night. "The stories say he could melt steel with his flames. What changed?" Jake asked while he scrubbed the floor. "Technology, I suppose. We started using energy weapons and laser systems. Fire breathing became old-fashioned. The young Draconians stopped learning it. Jake found some interesting information in the old medical databases. Draconians still had the organs needed for fire breathing. They had flame sacs in their chests and special valves in their throats. But the modern medical text said these organs were vestigial, leftover parts that no longer worked. What if those organs still work? Jake asked Prince Zephyr. What if they just need the right activation method? You mean the right breathing technique? Exactly. Jake showed him the anatomical diagrams he had found. Look, your people still have all the parts. They are just not being used correctly. Prince Zephyr studied the diagrams with interest. So the deep breathing we have been practicing might be activating these dormant organs, Jake finished. The smoke is proof that something is happening. They began to experiment more carefully. Jake taught Prince Zephyr different breathing patterns, some fast and sharp, others slow and deep. Each technique produced different results. The slow, deep breaths made the most smoke. The sharp breaths made sparks appear along with the smoke. Jake, Prince Zephyr said one night, I think you might be right about my people forgetting how to do this. These breathing patterns feel familiar, like something I should already know. Maybe it is instinctive, Jake said. Maybe your body remembers even if your mind does not. By the end of the second week, Prince Zephyr could produce steady streams of smoke and small sparks. He was also getting better at whistling, though he had not managed a clear note yet. The whistling and the fire-breathing use similar techniques, Jake observed. Both need precise breath control. You are a very good teacher, Prince Zephyr said. Where did you learn all this? Jake was quiet for a moment. I used to be an engineer. I designed things, solved problems. I had to understand how systems worked and how to fix them when they broke. What happened? Why did you become a janitor? I made a mistake, Jake said simply. People died because of something I designed wrong. After that, I could not trust myself to build anything important. Prince Zephyr looked at him with new understanding. But you are building something important now. You are helping me rebuild a part of my people's heritage. Jake had not thought of it that way, but the prince was right. For the first time in years, Jake felt like he was using his skills for something that mattered. Tomorrow night, I want to try something new, Jake said. I found some advanced breathing techniques in the database, but they might be dangerous. Prince Zephyr smiled and a small puff of smoke came out with his breath. I trust you, Jake Murphy. Let us see what happens. Jake arrived at work that night with a tablet full of research and a plan that scared him a little. He had found detailed information about ancient draconian fire-breathing techniques in the oldest files in the station database. Some of the documents were thousands of years old. Prince Zephyr was waiting for him as usual, but tonight he looked nervous too. I have been thinking about what we are doing, the prince said. What if I hurt someone? What if I lose control? That is why we are going to be very careful, Jake replied. He set up his cleaning cart but did not start working yet. I found some interesting things in the old records. He showed Prince Zephyr the tablet. These are training documents from ancient draconian fire schools. Your ancestors had whole academies dedicated to teaching proper fire breathing. Prince Zephyr looked amazed. Fire schools? I never heard of such things. According to these records, fire breathing was considered an art form, like music or painting. It took years to master, and students had to learn dozens of different breathing patterns. Jake scrolled through the documents. Look at this. They had safety protocols, practice exercises, even different types of flames for different purposes. Cooking flames, warning flames, battle flames. This is incredible, Prince Zephyr said, reading over Jake's shoulder. Why did my people forget all this? The records show that the fire schools closed about 800 years ago, Jake explained. Around the same time, your people developed advanced technology. I guess they thought they did not need the old ways anymore. Prince Zephyr looked sad. So much knowledge lost. But not gone forever, Jake said. We can bring it back. These training exercises are still here. We just have to figure out how to use them. They started with the basic exercises from the ancient texts. The first was called kindle breathing. Slow, deep breaths designed to warm up the flame sacs. Jake watched carefully as Prince Zephyr followed the instructions. The response was immediate. Thick smoke poured from the prince's nostrils, much more than they had seen before. Prince Zephyr's eyes went wide with surprise. "It feels warm inside my chest," he said, "like something is waking up." "The ancient text says that is normal," Jake reassured him. "Your flame sacs are activating properly for the first time." They moved to the next exercise, spark breathing. This involved shorter, sharper breaths with specific tongue positions. Prince Zephyr tried it, and bright sparks flew from his mouth along with the smoke. "Jake, this is actually working," Prince Zephyr said, his voice full of wonder. But Jake was worried about the smoke detector in the ceiling. If it went off, security would come running. He grabbed a maintenance panel from his cart and carefully disabled the alarm system in their practice room. "Is that safe?" Prince Zephyr asked. "Probably not," Jake admitted, "but neither is what we are doing. Sometimes you have to take risks to make progress." They continued through the exercises. Sustained breathing for long, steady flames. Combat breathing for quick, intense bursts. Each technique worked better than the last. Prince Zephyr's confidence grew with every success. Then they tried focused flame breathing, which was supposed to produce actual fire instead of just sparks and smoke. The ancient text warned that this was dangerous and should only be attempted by advanced students. "Maybe we should wait," Jake said, reading the warnings. "No," Prince Zephyr said firmly. "I can feel the fire inside me now. It wants to come out." He took the deep preparatory breath the text described. Jake could see his chest expanding and glowing slightly from within. Prince Zephyr held the breath for 10 seconds, then opened his mouth and exhaled. A stream of golden fire shot out, bright and hot. It lasted only a second before Prince Zephyr gasped and cut it off, but it was real fire. Actual dragon flame. They both stared at the scorch mark on the far wall. "I did it," Prince Zephyr whispered. "I actually did it." Jake felt tears in his eyes. He had helped someone achieve something impossible. For the first time since his engineering disaster, he felt truly proud of his work. "How do you feel?" Jake asked. "Amazing. Powerful. Like I found a part of myself I never knew was missing." Prince Zephyr looked at his hands, then at Jake. "Thank you. I could never have done this without you." They practiced for 2 more hours, with Prince Zephyr producing small flames on command. Jake taught him control techniques, showing him how to start and stop the fire cleanly. By the end of the night, the prince could whistle a simple tune and breathe fire with equal skill. "The breathing techniques are very similar," Jake observed. "Both require precise control of airflow and muscle coordination." "You were right when you said my people just forgot how to do this," Prince Zephyr said. "It feels natural now, like something I always should have known." As Jake packed up his equipment, he noticed that some of the practice sessions had left burn marks on the walls and furniture. The room smelled strongly of smoke and sulfur. "We need to be more careful," he said. "Someone is going to notice these marks." "I know a maintenance worker who might help us cover them up," Prince Zephyr said with a grin. Jake laughed, but he was genuinely worried. The station had security cameras and patrol schedules. It was only a matter of time before someone discovered what they were doing. "Zephyr, what will happen when people find out you can breathe fire again?" The prince's expression grew serious. "I do not know. My diplomatic team will probably be shocked. The other ambassadors will be surprised too. Some of them will not like it. Why not? Because it changes the balance of power. Right now, everyone thinks draconians are weak and harmless. If they know we can reclaim our fire-breathing abilities..." He trailed off. "They might see your people as a threat again," Jake finished. "Exactly. There are trade agreements and territorial treaties based on the assumption that we are no longer dangerous." Jake had not considered the political implications of their work. He had been focused on the personal challenge of helping Prince Zephyr succeed. But now he realized they might be starting something much bigger than just one dragon learning to breathe fire. "Do you want to stop?" Jake asked. Prince Zephyr breathed out a small puff of flame before answering. "No, my people deserve to know who they really are, even if it makes things complicated." "Then we keep going," Jake said. "But we need to be smarter about it." As Jake left that night, he could not shake the feeling that their secret would not stay hidden much longer. The burn marks, the smells, Prince Zephyr's growing confidence, all of it pointed toward a revelation that would change everything. He just hoped they would be ready when that moment came. Jake's worst fears came true 3 weeks into their secret training. He was cleaning the main corridor when he heard angry voices coming from the diplomatic quarters. Through the open door, he could see Prince Zephyr standing before a group of older Draconians, his head bowed in shame. Consorting with maintenance staff, one of the older dragons was saying, "Do you have any idea how this looks?" Jake recognized the speaker as Chancellor Voss, Prince Zephyr's chief advisor. The Chancellor was an ancient Draconian with dark green scales and cold yellow eyes. "And what is this nonsense about fire breathing?" Chancellor Voss continued. "The security reports mention strange smells and burn marks in areas where you have been seen." Jake tried to move past quietly, but Prince Zephyr saw him and their eyes met for a brief moment. Jake could see the fear and apology in the young prince's expression. "The human janitor has been filling your head with ridiculous ideas," Chancellor Voss said. "Fire breathing is a myth, a story from our primitive past. We have evolved beyond such things." "But Chancellor," Prince Zephyr said quietly, "what if it is not a myth? What if we really could—" "Enough!" Chancellor Voss roared. "You are confined to your quarters until further notice. And if I catch you speaking to that human again, there will be serious consequences." Jake hurried past, his heart pounding. He spent the rest of his shift worried about what would happen to Prince Zephyr. When the next night came, the conference room was empty. Jake waited for 2 hours, but the prince never showed up. The following morning brought worse news. Jake was heading home after his shift when he was stopped by Station Security Chief Adams. "Murphy," Chief Adams said, "I need to ask you some questions about your interactions with the Draconian diplomatic mission." "What kind of questions?" Jake asked, trying to sound casual. "There have been reports of unauthorized meetings between you and Prince Zephyr. There have also been unexplained fire damage in areas where you work." Jake's mouth went dry. "I just clean where I am assigned." Chief Adams studied him carefully. "The Draconian delegation has requested that you be transferred to a different section of the station. Away from their diplomatic quarters, can they do that? They have diplomatic immunity and considerable influence. Starting tomorrow, you will be working in the cargo bays." Jake nodded, knowing there was no point in arguing. But the cargo bays were on the opposite side of the station from the diplomatic quarters. He would have no chance of seeing Prince Zephyr there. That night, Jake could not sleep. He kept thinking about the young prince confined to his room and cut off from the fire-breathing techniques they had been developing. All their progress would be lost if they could not continue the training. He was lying in his small apartment when he heard a soft tapping at his door. Jake opened it cautiously and found Prince Zephyr standing in the hallway wearing a hooded cloak. "Zephyr, what are you doing here?" "If they catch you, I had to see you," the prince said, slipping inside. "Something terrible has happened." Jake closed the door quickly. "What is it?" "Ambassador Kralix of the Hegemony Coalition has issued a formal challenge," Prince Zephyr said, his voice shaking. "He says that if I cannot demonstrate true fire-breathing abilities in front of the full diplomatic assembly, it will prove that Draconians are weak and unworthy of our current territories." Jake felt his blood turn cold. The Hegemony Coalition was a military alliance of insect-like species that had been expanding their territory for decades. They were known for their aggressive tactics and contempt for lesser species. "When is this demonstration supposed to happen?" "Tomorrow night," Prince Zephyr said. "In the main assembly hall, representatives from 50 different species will be watching. It will be broadcast across multiple star systems. Can you do it? Can you breathe fire in front of all those people?" Prince Zephyr looked uncertain. "I have not practiced in almost a week, and I have never tried to do it under pressure like that." Jake started pacing around his small apartment. "This is a setup. Kralix knows you have not been able to breathe fire. He is counting on you to fail so he can claim Draconian space." "I know," Prince Zephyr said miserably, "but I cannot refuse the challenge without bringing dishonor to my entire species." "What does Chancellor Voss say about this?" "He wants me to refuse. He says it is better to be seen as cautious than as a failure." "But Jake, I know I can do this. The fire is still inside me. I can feel it." Jake stopped pacing and looked at his friend. In the weeks they had been training together, Prince Zephyr had become more than just a student. He was someone Jake cared about, someone whose success mattered to him. "We need to practice," Jake said. "Right now. We have one night to make sure you are ready." "But how? My quarters are being watched. So are the diplomatic areas." Jake thought for a moment, then smiled. "I know a place. The cargo bays where I am supposed to be working now. They are mostly empty at night and the security is lighter. They snuck through the station's maintenance corridors, using routes that Jake had learned during his 3 years of night work. The cargo bays were huge, dark spaces filled with shipping containers and loading equipment. Perfect, Jake said, turning on some work lights. Plenty of room and nothing that will burn. They worked through the night, going over every technique from the ancient texts. Prince Zephyr's fire breathing had gotten rusty from the week without practice, but it came back quickly. The key is confidence, Jake reminded him. You know you can do this. Do not let the crowd intimidate you. What if I fail? Prince Zephyr asked. What if nothing comes out when I try? Then you try again, Jake said simply. Humans have a saying, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. You do not give up just because something is hard. They practiced until dawn, with Prince Zephyr producing bigger and more controlled flames with each attempt. By the time they had to leave, Jake felt confident that his friend was ready. Remember, Jake said as they prepared to part ways, breathe from your diaphragm. Control the airflow, and trust yourself. Prince Zephyr nodded, but Jake could see the fear in his eyes. Jake, what if this changes everything? What if the other species decide that draconians are too dangerous to deal with? Then you deal with that when it happens, Jake said. Right now, your job is to show them who you really are. As Prince Zephyr disappeared back into the diplomatic section, Jake realized that this was bigger than just helping one friend succeed. The balance of power in multiple star systems could change based on what happened in that assembly hall. Jake had started this just to help a sad young prince learn to whistle. Now he was potentially reshaping galactic politics. The engineer in him was terrified by the implications, but the friend in him knew it was the right thing to do. All he could do now was wait and hope that their weeks of secret training would be enough when it mattered most. The main assembly hall was packed with representatives from across the galaxy. Jake watched from the maintenance gallery high above the main floor, where he had managed to sneak in despite being banned from the diplomatic areas. Below him, beings of every shape and size filled the curved seating areas. Ambassador Kralix stood at the center podium, his insect-like form gleaming under the bright lights. His forearms gestured dramatically as he spoke to the crowd. For too long, the Draconians have held valuable territories based on outdated fears of their so-called fire-breathing abilities, Kralix said, his voice carrying clearly through the hall's speakers. Today we will see the truth. They are no more dangerous than any other herbivorous species. Jake clenched his fists as laughter rippled through parts of the audience. He could see Chancellor Voss and the other Draconian diplomats sitting stiffly in their section, clearly uncomfortable with the whole situation. Prince Zephyr of the Draconian Empire has accepted our challenge, Kralix continued. If he can produce genuine fire, not smoke, not sparks, but real flame, then we will withdraw our territorial claims. If he cannot, he let the implication hang in the air. The crowd murmured with excitement as Prince Zephyr entered the hall. He looked small and young as he walked toward the center stage, but Jake could see the determined set of his shoulders. The prince was wearing ceremonial robes that made his golden scales shine. Are you ready, young prince? Ambassador Kralix asked with mock politeness. Prince Zephyr nodded. I am ready. Jake held his breath as his friend moved to the center of the stage. The hall fell completely silent. Even the air recycling system seemed to quiet down. Prince Zephyr closed his eyes and took a deep breath, the kind of diaphragmatic breathing that Jake had taught him. Jake could see his chest expanding properly, just like they had practiced. Is he meditating? Someone in the crowd whispered loudly, causing more laughter. But Jake could see what others could not. Small wisps of smoke were starting to come from Prince Zephyr's nostrils. The flame sacks were activating. Prince Zephyr opened his eyes and began to speak, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. My people have forgotten who we are, he said. We have spent so many years trying to fit in with the modern galaxy that we lost touch with our heritage. But heritage is not something you outgrow. It is something you rediscover. As he spoke, Prince Zephyr continued the breathing techniques Jake had taught him. More smoke appeared, and Jake could see tiny sparks starting to flicker around the prince's mouth. A friend taught me that humans have a saying, Prince Zephyr continued. They say that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Ambassador Kralix looked annoyed. We did not come here for speeches, Prince. Show us your fire or admit that you cannot. Prince Zephyr smiled, and when he did, small flames flickered between his teeth. The crowd gasped. Even Jake felt his heart skip a beat at the sight. You want to see fire? Prince Zephyr asked. Then let me show you what a draconian prince can do. He took the deepest breath Jake had ever seen him take. His chest glowed from within as the ancient flame sacs reached full activation. Prince Zephyr held the breath for 10 seconds, just like the old texts instructed. Then he opened his mouth and exhaled. A stream of golden fire erupted from his mouth, bright as a welding torch and twice as hot. But this was not the simple flame they had practiced with in secret. This was a masterwork of fire control. Prince Zephyr shaped the flame as he breathed it out, making it dance and swirl through the air. He created rings of fire that spun above the crowd's heads. He wrote symbols in flame that hung in the air for long seconds before fading. The demonstration lasted for nearly a full minute, far longer than Jake thought was possible. When Prince Zephyr finally closed his mouth and the last flames died away, the entire hall was completely silent. Then the applause started. It began with the draconian section, but quickly spread throughout the hall. Even some of the hegemony delegates were clapping, though Ambassador Kralix was not among them. "Impossible," Kralix said, his voice amplified by his microphone. "This must be some kind of trick, some technological device." Prince Zephyr walked over to the ambassador and breathed a small flame directly onto Kralix's podium, leaving a scorch mark in the metal. "No tricks," Prince Zephyr said. "Just knowledge that was never really lost. Only forgotten." The crowd erupted in cheers. Jake felt tears running down his face as he watched his friend accept the congratulations of beings from across the galaxy. But Prince Zephyr was not done. He looked up toward the maintenance gallery where Jake was hiding. "I did not rediscover this ability alone," Prince Zephyr announced to the crowd. "I had a teacher, someone who believed in me when no one else did, someone who showed me that with patience and proper technique, anything is possible." Jake tried to shrink back into the shadows, but Prince Zephyr pointed directly at him. "Jake Murphy, would you please join me down here?" Jake's first instinct was to run, but the entire hall was looking up at him now. Security guards were already moving to escort him down. He had no choice but to follow them to the main floor. The crowd parted as Jake walked toward the stage, still wearing his janitor's uniform and carrying his cleaning supplies. He felt completely out of place among all the diplomats and ambassadors. "This human taught me more than just fire breathing," Prince Zephyr said, putting his hand on Jake's shoulder. "He taught me that wisdom can come from anywhere, that a maintenance worker can know things that even princes need to learn." Jake looked out at the crowd of alien faces, all staring at him with curiosity and respect. For the first time in years, he did not feel like a failure. "I just taught him to whistle," Jake said into Prince Zephyr's microphone. The fire was always there. Ambassador Kralix had quietly left the stage, his challenge thoroughly defeated. The hegemony delegation was already filing out of the hall, their territorial ambitions in ruins. Chancellor Voss approached them, his expression unreadable. "Prince Zephyr," he said formally, "the High Council will want to know how this was accomplished." "Then we will teach them," Prince Zephyr replied. "All of them. It is time for our people to remember who they are." The Chancellor looked at Jake with new respect. "And you, human? The Draconian Empire owes you a great debt." "I do not want a debt," Jake said. "I just want to help." 3 months later, Jake found himself in a very different job. Instead of pushing a cleaning cart through empty hallways, he was standing in front of a classroom full of young Draconians on their homeworld. "Remember," he told his students, "breathing is the foundation of everything. Control your breath and you control your fire." 20 young dragons took deep breaths in unison, and the air filled with wisps of smoke and small flames. Prince Zephyr, now called Prince Zephyr the Flamebringer, visited often to check on the progress of the new fire-breathing academy they had established together. "Any regrets about leaving your quiet janitor job?" he asked Jake one day. Jake looked out at his students practicing the techniques that Jake had helped rediscover. Young Draconians from across the Empire came here to learn their heritage. It was loud, chaotic, and sometimes dangerous work. "None," Jake said with a smile. "This is what I was meant to do." Prince Zephyr grinned and breathed out a small flame in the shape of a musical note. He had never forgotten how to whistle either. In the distance, Jake could hear the sound of dozens of young voices, all learning to whistle the old Earth songs he had taught them. The sound mixed with the roar of practice flames and the laughter of students discovering their abilities for the first time. "Jake Murphy," former failed engineer and former night shift janitor, had found his true calling at last. He was a teacher, and his students were learning to breathe fire. It had all started with a simple lesson in whistling, but it had become something much more important. It had become hope for an entire species, and redemption for one lonely human who had thought his useful days were behind him. Sometimes the most important changes begin with the smallest steps, taken by the most unlikely teachers in the quietest moments when no one else is watching.